Squad.
What you're about to see is a real-life story, taken from the files of the police racket and bunco squads, business protective associations, and similar sources all over the country. It is intended to expose the confidence game, the carefully worked out frauds by which confidence men take more money each year from the American public than all the bank robbers and thugs with their violence.
Captain Braddock. Captain Braddock. Ready.
I have a special name for this particular bit of crime data. I call it the case of the old flame. There'd been a spectacular fire the night before in a shoe warehouse on Lower Chestnut Street.
There's a Mrs. Patrick Conroy to see you. Says she's an old friend of yours.
Mrs. Conroy? We'll send her right in.
Yes, sir. Come in, Mrs. Conroy.
Mary.
You're very busy, Brad.
Oh, not busy at all. And even if I were.
I know. You dropped everything. You're always that way.
Not always. I didn't drop some things when I should have.
Oh, you shouldn't talk to an old married woman like that.
Old? Let's see now. It's been 5 years since Pat Conroy came along and took you away from me. That makes you an old married lady of 24. And just as beautiful as ever, I might add.
Blarney, but it makes for nice listening.
By the way, how is Patrick these days?
Well, that's why I'm here. I wanted to talk to you about Pat.
Well, have a chair. Sit down.
Thanks.
Tell me all about it. Now, just when did your husband start to beat you, Mrs. Conroy?
Well, I'm afraid it's nothing as simple as that. Although we've both been taking sort of a mental beating because of Pat's work.
I don't get it. Insurance detectives lead lovely lives. Travel, fat expense accounts, no brass hats passing the buck. What's Pat unhappy about?
This.
Is Pat investigating the Xavier warehouse fire?
Yes, he's investigated all Mr. Xavier's fires.
All? How many?
5 in 3 years.
5?
Yes, and he's been an old bear ever since Mr. Xavier's first fire. Pinning something on him has gotten to be an obsession with Pat. He's sure something's wrong, but he's the only one that thinks so. I wish you'd talk to him. Try to convince him that a man can have that many losses and still be honest.
Knowing Pat, that would take a lot of convincing. Besides, fires aren't in my department. You want the arson squad.
We've had the arson squad for 4 fires. It'll be the same with the 5th. They'll go through the ruins. They won't find anything suspicious. Mr. Xavier will get his insurance, and Pat will go on being an old bear. But you don't want to be annoyed, I gather, so forget I came.
Hold it, Mary. You haven't lost your Irish temper, have you?
Well, I guess with 2 Irish tempers in the house, I'm getting a little jumpy.
Let me do a little checking. Give me Grady.
Arson Squad, Lieutenant Grady speaking.
Oh, this is Braddock, Jim. I want a complete rundown on the Xavier fires, including the one last night.
The first 4 fires were strictly legit. And up to now, it looks like this one is, too.
Thanks for the information. Well, that was no good. Grady says he's clean.
I wish Pat thought so.
5 fires. 1 or 2, yes, maybe even 3, but 5 in 3 years.
You sound like Pat. I don't want you talking to him and making things worse than they are.
Don't worry, Mary. I'll try and be diplomatic. I'll stop by your place tonight after dinner. Meanwhile, I want to have a talk with that highly respected pillar of the community, Mr. J.J. Xavier.
Thank you, Brad.
See you tonight, Mary.
Sit down, please. As you probably know, these terrible fires have plagued me for 3 years now.
Yes, I know. 5 of them.
You're new with the arson detail, aren't you, Captain Braddock?
I'm not with the arson detail. My division handles frauds, rackets, bunco cases.
Oh, I see. And I suppose the inference is that there might be a fraud in connection with last night's fire. I must tell my friend, the police commissioner, about this at our luncheon club meeting tomorrow.
Yes, I just bet he'll laugh his head off and tell me to stop meddling in the arson squad's business, won't he?
Please, Captain Braddock, I didn't mean it that way at all. I can readily understand that so many losses in a 3-year period might look suspicious to a police official accustomed to dealing with crooks. I merely meant I wanted to compliment the commissioner on your efficiency.
That's very nice of you.
Look, Captain Braddock, we have no quarrel. I'm perfectly willing to cooperate in any way. Just what is it you want from me?
The answers to a few questions.
I'll try to answer them all.
Okay. Did you own the warehouse building or just the stock of shoes?
Just the shoes.
What about the other warehouses that burned? Did you own them?
No. I make it a practice not to invest in real estate. Upkeep, repairs, things like that enter into the cost of doing business. So I just lease the space I need and let my landlord worry about them.
Very clever.
I think so. My rental overhead is a fixed cost. I know to the penny just how much to charge against the business.
Let's talk about records. I assume you keep a record of all the incoming and outgoing shipments?
Well, naturally. I was just looking them over. You'll find every shipment received during the last year in this folder. And in this one, a record of every pair of shoes that was shipped out of the place. Lieutenant Grady and an investigator from the insurance company examined them very carefully this morning. But I suppose you'll want to go over them again.
I'll just leaf through the shipments made in the last month, if you don't mind.
Go right ahead.
TTL, what does that mean?
Trans-State Trucking Limited. We ship with them exclusively, except for small fill-in orders which go by express. They're a very reliable firm. You'll find that their records agree with mine.
I'm sure that I will.
Excuse me for interrupting, Mr. Xavier, but a man's waiting outside for his check. Would you please sign this? It's for $96.
For what?
The Ajax trucking lines.
Oh. Oh, yes. There you are.
Thank you.
Any other information you'd like, Captain?
Oh, that's all for now.
Drop in any time. Within the next 60 days, that is.
Are you putting a time limit on my welcome?
No, no. But the insurance company must settle the loss in 60 days. The case will be closed then.
I'll be back before that. Oh, by the way, your night watchman was badly burned, wasn't he?
Yes, poor fellow. A horrible thing to have happen to an old and trusted employee. He was with me for years.
Well, I'll be running along. See you later.
Anytime, Captain.
You can't stay long, Mr. Xavier. Doctor's orders.
I understand. How are you feeling, Tom?
What do you think?
No need to take that attitude. It's unfortunate that you were injured, but they tell me you're going to pull through all right.
Yes, and carry these scars around the rest of my life. Why didn't you tell me where you was rigging that defective wiring? I was lucky to get out alive.
But you did get out, and you haven't a thing to worry about. I've arranged for the best of care for you here, at my expense.
Mm-hmm. Big of you. But it ain't big enough.
What's troubling you, Tom?
Plenty. I've played along with you, but I never been burned like this before. And I have a feeling that you wouldn't have shed a tear if I'd have roasted and gone up with the rest of that stuff that went up in smoke.
You've wronged me, Tom. What a horrible thought.
Well, I've got a nice one to make up for it. This caper's costing you more dough.
That's quite understandable.
Twice as much.
Just as you say, Tom. Any visitors?
Yeah. Grady from the arson squad and Pat Conroy from the insurance company. Same old question, same old answers.
Did they ask you anything about trucks?
No. Why?
There was a Captain Braddock of the Racket squad in my office late this afternoon. He seemed particularly concerned with our shipping methods and your health.
You think he knows something?
I'm not certain. That's why I'm here, to caution you.
Well, I've never talked.
There's always a first time.
Well, there won't be with me.
I'm positive there won't, especially since you've shared liberally in the profits and are about to share even more liberally. I have an aversion to prison, and I'm sure you have too. Oh, by the way, I know that burns are painful, very painful. If you have trouble sleeping tonight, take these. My doctor gave them to me when I was in that auto accident. Nurses are pretty busy in the middle of the night. These will stop your pain.
Thank you.
I'll be in touch with you, Tom.
You better be.
That's what I like about our relationship. It's based on absolute trust and undying friendship.
Time's up, Mr. Xavier. Doctor's orders.
Oh, thank you. Good night.
Good night. Well, now that your visitors left, it's time you settle down for the night. Here, let me freshen your pillows for you. Where did this come from?
Don't be so nosy. It's mine.
Did Mr. Xavier bring these to you?
Well, what if he did?
It's against the rules to bring in outside medication. All medication must appear on your chart. Now, what are they?
Sleeping pills. He just wanted to be sure I'd rest.
Well, you won't need these to sleep with. I have orders to give you a sedative right now. Now, drink this.
I'll get it, dear. Brad, come in.
Hello, Mary.
Well, if it isn't the Racket man in person.
Hey, Hawkshaw. You seem to be up to your hips in paperwork.
Yeah,
You expect to build up a case against Xavier on paper?
maybe. You never can tell. Mary said you were going to call on Xavier. What happened?
Nothing. He seems to be a very forthright, honest, and very helpful man.
So you sailed for that sanctimonious line of his, just like the rest of them.
Did it ever occur to you that a man might have 5 fires in 3 years legitimately?
No, it did not, and I'll tell you why. When you've been investigating insurance claims for as long as I have, you get so you can spot a phony one without knowing exactly why. I know Xavier's a cheater.
But you can't prove it in court.
Oh, cut it out, will you? I just figured the percentage on the guy. The odds against a man in the wholesale shoe business having 5 fires in 3 years are 9,736,000 to 1. Xavier's got to be guilty.
Unless he happened to be the one.
Mary's right. No jury would convict him on your figures alone.
That I know. Look, Brad, you talked to Xavier. Now tell me the truth. What was your impression?
I think he's as phony as a $3 bill.
You do? And maybe between us we can figure an angle.
Captain Braddock, you're letting me down.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mary. I know a fella shouldn't choose sides in a family argument, but I feel the same way Pat does about Xavier. I think he's just too good to be true.
Have you got a lead?
Probably not. Just one little discrepancy in his story. Right after he told me he shipped exclusively by Trans-State Trucking, his secretary came in for a signature on a check for $96 payable to Ajax Trucking. Follow it up if you want.
I will.
In the meantime, I'll do a little snooping around. I'll drop in again tomorrow night. That is, if Mary doesn't bar me.
I should, but I won't.
Thanks. Good night.
Good night, Brad.
Next morning, I went out to do a little sightseeing. While there's nothing attractive about the ruins of a destructive fire, I decided to do a little poking around just on the chance I might find something.
Good morning, Captain Braddock.
Good morning.
Isn't it terrible, all this destruction?
Yeah, the fire did a pretty thorough job.
To think, that was once a beautiful shoe, designed to make a pretty feminine foot even more attractive. Now look at it. A charred heel. An ugly thing.
You really have a feeling for shoes, don't you?
Oh, yes, indeed. Shoes have been my life. Since I started as a clerk in my father's store, the day he bought me my first long pair of trousers. Tell me, Captain, you found anything suspicious?
No, not yet.
If there's anything I can do to help. But I suppose that sounds silly to you, in view of the fact that you suspect me of a criminal act.
Have I said that I suspect you?
No. No, you haven't. I'm sorry I mentioned it. But I mean it when I say I want to assist you any way I can.
Well, thanks. I may call on you if anything turns up.
Please do. I must run along now. I'm meeting with the insurance company auditors. They're going over my bills of lading. All this damage. Yet I'll receive only what I paid to the manufacturers. Not a penny of my regular profit do I get. Excuse me if I sound too crassly commercial, but profits are important to a businessman.
I've heard rumors to that effect.
Well, goodbye.
So long. Hello, Miss Sykes.
Captain Braddock. Why, I haven't seen you since, let me see, Since they brought in that mining stock swindler 2 years ago, after that rich widow shot him.
You've got a pretty good memory. How about using it to help out a tired old detective with a defeatist complex?
Well, what would you like me to remember?
You have a patient on this floor by the name of Tom Taylor.
Yes, that's right. He has third-degree burns from that shoe warehouse fire.
Yeah, that's the one. Has he had any visitors?
Well, that doesn't require memory. We keep a record of all visitors.
Good.
He's just had 3. Lieutenant Grady from the arson squad, an insurance detective named Patrick Conroy, and Mr. Xavier.
Xavier, were you here when he saw Taylor?
I certainly was. Excuse me.
Sure.
3rd floor, Miss Sykes.
This is Mr. Xavier. I'm calling to inquire about Mr. Taylor. How is he?
He's doing just fine, Mr. Xavier. Just fine.
Oh. Getting along all right, eh? Did he sleep well last night?
Like a baby. I gave him a sedative right after you left. He slept straight through till breakfast. His chart shows he's completely out of danger.
That's great. Yes, indeed. Please tell him that I called and that I'll be in again to see him.
Yes, I'll do that. And when you do call, I have a bone to pick with you. About slipping him those sleeping pills last night. You should know better than to do a thing like that. If we let visitors give our patients medicine, our charts would start looking like the fluctuations of a jittery stock market. Visitors, always trying to be
I
doctors.
couldn't help it overhearing. Those pills he tried to slip to him, you still have them?
Yes. Have them right here.
I'll take them if you don't mind. And it might be wise not to say anything to Xavier about my picking them up.
I won't say a word.
Thanks.
Excuse me.
Sure.
3rd floor, Miss Sykes. Just a moment, he's right here. Your office calling.
Hello?
Oh, hello, Captain. This is Eddie talking. The police lab called and told me to tell you you were right about those heels. I don't know what heels they're talking about. We got so many of them in this office.
Don't you worry about it, Eddie. I know which ones they mean. Thanks.
Well, I suppose you'd like to see Mr. Taylor now.
Later.
Excuse me, dear.
Hi.
Good evening, Patrick.
Hello, Brad.
Hi, Mary.
Hello.
Hey, what happened to you? You look cheerful for a change.
I had a great day, my friend. Bought my wife a pair of shoes.
Very nice. That is the shoe. But is that an event in this household?
It is on his salary.
Ah, but these are very special shoes. Came from out of town.
Well, I'm a very patient man. I'm sure you'll get to the point eventually.
Okay, I'll talk. I followed up that Ajax trunking tip you gave me.
Check their freight shipments, I suppose.
No, nothing as crude as that. If they happen to be in a caper with Xavier, they'd cover up. I did it the hard way. You said that Xavier's check to Ajax was for $96, so I checked freight rates and drew a circle on a map to include the radius covered by $96 worth of mileage, using this town as the focal point. The circle passed through just one town.
And you found some shoes.
Lots of shoes. Shoes on sale, marked down $6 a pair. Shoes from Xavier's.
And what does that prove?
What does it prove? What kind of a detective are you? Why would a store be selling shoes like these at a reduction at this time of the year?
Well, they wouldn't. They're a brand new style.
But they did. Why?
Well, it could be that Xavier bought too many of that particular model and unloaded some of them at a price. Let me look at it, Pat. Very pretty. Excellent workmanship. You know, you may have something, Pat. And there's only one way to find out.
Fred, what are you doing?
Are you crazy?
Oh, perfectly sane. Just relax, enjoy yourself. This is going to be cozy.
$16.
Only 8, dear. I still have one.
How much longer do we barbecue that shoe?
I think it's done.
It's done, as far as I'm concerned.
What happens now?
Well, you'll notice that the leather-covered wooden heel was not consumed, only charred. And that the rest of the shoe was consumed entirely. Does that suggest anything to you, Pat?
Yeah, it does. If this is on the level, the heels of all those shoes destroyed in the Xavier warehouse fire are lying out there in the ruins.
It's on the level. I had police lab cook up a mess of shoes this morning, and the heels charred just like this.
Darling, you could count the heels in the ruins and maybe find a discrepancy in Mr. Xavier's invoices.
What do you mean, May? We're a cinch, aren't we, Brad?
Well, it sounds promising. But there's always a chance that the figures may add up.
Then what happens?
Well, in that case, we start all over again when Mr. Xavier has his next fire.
Oh, and go all through that again. I'll get to it. Conroe residence. Oh, just a minute. Brad, it's for you.
Oh, thanks. Excuse me, Pat. Braddock speaking.
Eddie, Cap. The lab called again. They wanted me to tell you you were right about those pills.
Thank you. Get your hat, Pat.
Where are we going?
Well, first we're stopping at the police lab to pick up a report. Then we're visiting a man who was burned in Xavier's fire. And he's going to burn some more when he finds out that Xavier slipped him some pills with enough cyanide of potassium to kill a herd of elephants.
Be right with you.
Well, it looks like I was wrong. Oh, but please don't tell Pat.
It's a promise.
Bye, dear.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, Mary.
Oh. Xavier is trying to poison me, huh?
There's no doubt about it. Now, why would he want to do a thing like that?
He's got 5 good reasons.
You mean you were in on all 5 of his fires?
Well, that's almost right. 3 years ago, I caught him in the act setting the first fire. Since then, I've been in, but good.
I'll bet he paid off plenty.
I say he did. Best night watchman job in the country.
He moved a big shipment of shoes out of the warehouse shortly before the fire. Did you know about that?
Sure. I'll have to load the truck. How'd you know?
Well, just a matter of counting heels. Well, it's about time I picked up Mr. Xavier for arson and attempted murder.
They told me at the office that he's addressing the State Retailers Convention tomorrow morning on how to be a success in the shoe business. Don't you think we ought to wait?
Yeah. It'll be a pleasure to cut him right off in the middle of a sentence.
Boy, would I like to be there to see that.
Will you stop that noise? You'll wake the whole floor up.
I just heard something very funny.
Will it still be that funny when they move you to the county jail tomorrow?
Well, Brad, I just booked Xavier. You should have seen the look in his face when I yanked him off that speaker's platform. Man, was he mortified.
And that, I suppose, makes you a red-hot detective.
Sure it does. Xavier's in jail, isn't he? Of course, you helped a little bit.
Oh, thanks very much. But when it comes to shoes, you're still an amateur detective.
What are you talking about?
Give these to Mary with my compliments.
He is? You mean that Mary's going to... You mean that I'm going to
Yes, Pat, you're going to be a father.
Boy! I better get right home and tell Mary. My hat. I'm going to be a father.
Well, that closes the case of the old flame. Anytime an arsonist gets away with a fraudulent fire, he dips into the pockets of everyone who carries fire insurance. Insurance rates are based upon average losses, which show up in actuarial figures. Mr. Xavier had figured out a pretty clever scheme to get his shoes for nothing, to have the insurance company pay for them. That placed him in the same class with the swindlers, bunco artists, and confidence men that the American public must constantly be on guard against. Could happen to you.